So I'm here with Adam Black, and we're here at the ATFO, the Appalachian Trainer Face-Off. This is Hop's biggest event of the year. It's their annual event where these trainers put a lot of time into these horses that they are fostering for a certain amount of time. And then some of these horses actually end up getting adopted at the end of the event. Adam Black has been a part, I think, of every single one?
Every year, yes.
Every single year for the past, this is year what?
Year 10.
Year 10.
Year 2, I was a judge, but I was still here volunteering and helping.
I love it. I love it. Tell us a little bit about like how you got started in this and what it's looked like.
So actually, Tania reached out to me years ago. She kind of invited me to the first one, or kind of put that out there. I just finished a 3-day colt starting competition, and when she presented this idea, I thought, well, okay, that's a little different, 100 days. So that's how I got roped into this. And that first year, there were a total of 8 competitors across the board. If they had a youth and an adult division, and then it's just grown after all those years to what it is today.
That is awesome. And I understand you've won quite a few.
I have. I think 5 out of the 10.
Maybe
so.
five or something like that, Give or take a few. That is awesome. Tell me a little bit. You said that, you're a colt starter. Do you still start colts?
I do. That's primarily what I do.
Walk me through that. What does that look like? What do you do?
Yeah. So, I've always had an interest in starting the horses. My program can be 30, 60, 90 days or longer than that. And I'll start pretty much any horse. If it's got hooves and a mane and a tail, I'll start at anything from quarter horses, gaited horses, some sport horses. And that's really what I like. Because you can see the progression, from when they come in, maybe not handled or not even used to people, to when they leave, they're, accepting a saddle, a rider, able to go on trail ride, or, a couple of little fun shows or something, kind of get them started so they can go on from there and do their, careers or whatever they may do. That's
awesome. I love that. So you work, it sounds like, with a diverse type of like horse, not just discipline specific or anything like that. Yeah. Tell me a little bit about your process, the way you work with horses, because there's so many ways to start horses, right? You kind of see the old rough and tumble way of like sacking them out,
right?
Walk me through. What does that look like?
Yeah, so I do, I kind of flow in between. I really read the horse. The horse really will tell me what it needs, what it can handle, what it can't handle. So, we always start off with like a baseline of, like emotionally what this horse is going through in the moment. Like, does he need help? Does he not need help? Is there things we need to focus on, or we just kind of like, ignore for a minute and kind of see if the horse kind of gets some confidence in his own and kind of overcomes those things to just, again, then build its confidence for the next step. Not really hold their hand, but also help them when they need to. So a lot of emotional base, taking the time it takes to get on to the next stop. That way we don't come back and have to fill in, those cracks or those holes or something like that. So, sometimes it takes a little bit longer progress to get there, but eventually you get there faster because of that.
Yeah. Let me ask you this: when you start a colt, or maybe even like just when you're handling that colt before you actually like do the first ride, what are some things that if you see, like characteristics that if you see them in a colt, like, oh, this is going to be a nice colt to work with, this is going to be a nicer ride to work with? What do you see there?
I mean, just the overall confidence of a horse. And, when the first couple of days when I bring one in, I'll just turn it out in the arena and I'll just watch it for a minute and kind of see, is he curious about the obstacles that are sitting over in the corner? Or does he just kind of, stay reserved in the middle? Or is he, every little noise he kind of looks and reacts? Or even if he does look and react, like how that reaction is, is he really concerned, or he's just observant of like, oh, I heard something, because that can be perceived either way. Some horses may not react, but mentally they're reacting so much, but physically they're just they just want to shut down and kind of hide. So kind of like reading a horse that way, and then that kind of will tell me how to proceed, with the next couple steps. So whether it's a couple days, more days of just, letting them kind of figure it out on their own, or do I need to really kind of step in and start, get the ball rolling, or things like that. So that's kind of how I approach those.
Very cool. So you guys do colt starting. What else do you do? You guys do lessons or clinics or stuff like that?
Starting to. I think that's the next 5-10 year plan, because I know one day maybe I won't want to climb on some of these young ones, but to kind of do clinics, and because that's I see a big need for that. Usually, as trainers, we can get a horse and get along fairly decent, but some people that don't really have the time to commit or whatever, or just kind of casually ride, they kind of maybe don't pick up on some of the signs or where the horse may need some help, and then that can lead into getting into some trouble. So I think educating the owners and handlers of the horses is kind of the next step, where I kind of want to head, because I think if I can help 5 people with their horse, they might be able to pass that on to somebody else, and you can that trickle down effect to kind of create better horsemen and women.
That's awesome. I love that. How long have you been working horses professionally?
2017.
Okay, what's that, like 11, 12 years?
Yeah.
That's a while. That's good. How has, from say 2017, how has the way that you do business, the way that you work with horses even, how has that evolved? What kind of things, what kind of changes have you made, have you learned, have you walked through?
So looking back at that 2017 year was the first year that I thought, wow, I'm going to be a horse trainer. And it was a rude awakening, because I think growing up, even the horses that I took on as projects, just as they were easy horses. So they kind of like, well, this, this is pretty easy to get along with. And then as you get, more yourself out there in the world, you get a little harder horses, or a little more complicated. So then it was, I had to kind of take a step back and be like, okay, let's figure this thing out, and kind of redirect where we needed to go. What I needed to do to change things or help some things.
Yeah. And I think that's like with everything. Like there's always like you get into things, you make adjustments, you figure out what works, what doesn't. Sometimes there are things that we think are going to work, but then they don't.
Sure.
Right? And, and that's, for better or for worse, it's part of the. I think for those of us who like work for ourselves, I think that's like part of the joy, like figuring things out, tinkering, but there's also like an uncertainty about it too sometimes.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about that, because I know that for, in the horse world, there's times when it's like feast, there's times when it's like famine, there's times when has business been pretty steady for you? Have you had ups and downs, ebbs and flows, challenging situations? What does that look like?
Yeah, I've been blessed, and I really give a lot of credit to the Heart of Phoenix for, just promoting their trainers and sharing everything the trainers do.
They do a great job of that.
I've spent $50 on a box of business cards. That's the only advertisement I've really ever done. Everything else has been word of mouth, and the ATFO, and just volunteering and fostering, and so that is a big thing that's kind of helped me get to where I am today. So I've always been pretty busy with that. I've got a wait list and that, but just
I heard you have a long wait list, right?
I keep it short, so I don't have to really think a lot about the future, but like a lot of people are interested. I said, circle back around. Things change, obviously with horses, so sometimes people can come a little earlier or whatever, sure. Timely horses need to stay a little longer. But it's been one less stress that I've had to kind of worry about, is if I'm going to have enough horses in the barn to pay the bills, or that, but I've been truly blessed with it.
That is awesome, because I am so impressed by all the trainers that come and pour in time to the horses, right? Because like it's expense, right?
Sure.
Like you're feeding that horse, you're taking care of that horse mentally, you got to care for a horse, and there's a lot there, but it's cool because all of you guys that do this are giving so much. And so it's really cool too that the organization is giving back as far as like the recognition,
sure.
the building, helping to build awareness and promote you. That's really cool. Yeah. What would you say to a young trainer who's just getting started, who's maybe having a little bit of a rough go at it? What kind of advice would you give them?
I'd say you just got to put yourself out there, like I don't want to say sink or swim, but that you get that first one under your belt, you're a little bit more prepared. And I've told a couple trainers that come in their first year, and it doesn't go as well as they planned, but I said next year you know what to expect. You can kind of get the vibe of here and how it flows. I said, so prepare yourself and come back a little bit more. And I've seen a lot of trainers come back and just night and day from what they were now they're, you know, a lot more confident in themselves, which then, you know, relates to the horse so much more, you know.
Sure.
So
Let me ask you a question. Having won so many times, and again, like for someone who's looking like, well, you know, Adam Black, you know, he always comes and he cleans it up and he slays and all that kind of stuff. Like, tell me about that, because I imagine just like anybody else, right? You go into a competition and it's like, well, I hope we do well, you know, I hope we show our, kind of walk me through that. What does that look like? And what have those wins look like? Like what kind of work and struggles and difficulties have you had to endure to get to those wins?
yeah, so I think, I mean, you know, at the end of the day, this is a competition, so there is that aspect of that. But there's, you know, there's so many entities of that, you know, there's actually the, you know, the horseman side, there's the showmanship side, there's, you know, the general just taking care of your horse and showing off the best characteristics that they have. So, you know, when you come down to these things, you know, you prepare as much as you can, but at the end of the day, you know what you have as a horse, you know, so you come down here and you show those traits off. And, you know, as a showman, you know, there's things you can do to just present yourself in there that shows confidence in yourself and in the horse. So, you know, come down here and you just bring your A game. And then I think that's the biggest thing, that, you know, whether you know your horse can do a lot of these things or not, but, you know, that confidence, really, a lot of people pick up on that and say, okay, you know, they have that, and that he's able to transfer that to the horse and show, like, okay, you know, they put the work in, and the horse is as ready as they can be.
I love that. I'm going to keep picking your brain here.
Yeah.
So for other trainers who maybe are watching this, what is something, because you've been here a long time, you've seen a lot of trainers come and go, you've seen trainers, you know, do well, trainers who maybe have a rougher, harder time with their horses. If there were one or two things that you could say, like, you know, these are one or two things that when I get a horse, you know, that I'm really going to focus on and work on, that really help and give me kind of some of the tools that I need to do well, what would those things be?
I mean, I would say the biggest thing is know your horse as far as the emotional side of the horse. You know, can he handle pressure? Can he not handle pressure? You know, is he okay with me standing 2 feet, or do I have to be 2.5? You know, just to keep him when he's uncertain, you know, and that to give him that comfort zone that he has, and then progress from there, you know. It's not so much about, you know, the maneuvers, but if the disposition of the horse allows you to do things, then you know, you can kind of help them through that. But, you know, if they're, you know, nervous about you or just nervous about the things, there's things you can do to help, you know, kind of center and kind of like regroup and allow that horse to settle, and then you can continue on. So that disposition and just the overall emotional state of the horse, once you get that, then the physical maneuvers become easy, you know.
And is that something you learn just with experience or time, or?
The horses have been my biggest teacher, you know, observing in a field. You know, you see the boss mare, all she has to do is switch her tail and everybody kind of moves out of the way. So, you know, you don't have to be big and loud and whatever. It's kind of like a quiet conversation, and, you know, it is that conversation between human and horse to, you know, make everything look smooth. And even if the horse is struggling, you know, you can be that leader for that horse in that moment.
When you go back and you reflect upon some of the horses that you've worked with in the past, and whether it's a hop horse or another horse, which horse would you say taught you the most, that you go back and like, it makes you kind of laugh inside and reminisce?
I would say there's probably two that stick out quite a bit as far as the true challenge. One was Valero, which was a pretty aggressive stallion. You know, he had all the confidence in the world in himself to say, I don't need anybody. You know, I figured that out. So that was one end of the spectrum. And then this year, Chicago, he's so introverted. So he shut down so many times and just would stand and just, you know, peek around. He wouldn't even really look in the beginning. And so that was a challenge as far as, like, he doesn't want to be mean or hurtful, but he's just so lack of confidence and hides emotionally that can be just, that can be just as dangerous or cautious as one that, you know, is kind of expressive and shows like, hey, I don't like this. So there's always somewhat of an element of a guessing game of, you know, what we have today. So, and you try not to think about that all the time, because then that will keep you kind of from progressing, but you're always kind of like, okay, can he handle this or can he not handle that? So that's been the hardest with him as far as preparing him for that.
That's awesome. I got maybe 2 more questions
Sure.
for you. So also being a part of HOP, like you're interacting with a lot of trainers, you're seeing a lot of younger trainers coming in and getting started too. So I guess this first question has an A and a B. What are some things that you see with some of these younger trainers that you admire, that you're like, this is pretty cool, like this is neat to see? And then also, what are some things that you're like, you know, from your old man seat, being like, hey, probably shouldn't do that.
Right. I think what I enjoy about this is that, you know, we're kind of all on the same page. So everyone's been very open to bounce ideas off of each other. Yes, it's a competition, but everyone's willing to be like, oh, hey, in this pattern, I think if you approach this way, that kind of sets you up better. So there's no, I don't say any secrets, or, you know, everyone's kind of willing to help out, even as your competitor, like right beforehand, like, hey, don't forget to do that. Because I know yesterday a couple people forgot some things on the, you know, the technical as far as the fly spray or something like that. So after that, we all kind of joked like, hey, don't forget the fly spray. Because, you know, you get out there and your brain starts going 100 miles an hour.
Yeah.
So that's what I really enjoy about all the trainers, is like we're all in it for the horse. So, you know, like the competition just keeps you driving. But, you know, at the end of the day, it's hopefully, you know, all the horses go home on somebody else's trailer, you know, into their new home.
Okay. All right. And then the ladder. What's the thing that you look at and you're like, you know, we could do a little bit better here.
I mean, I think again, you know, a lot of them, we see the end goal, but there's so much before that. So, you know, I think it's fine to take a step back and be like, okay, well, I know I need to do all this, but it's like, let's get the A, B, and C solid first, and then the rest of the alphabet we can, you know, slowly. But if we don't have that, it's hard to like get to the end. So I think if you get those basics and make them look good and be like, well, that's what I have today, that sets the horse up. You know, it may not get adopted now, but the people see that and they see that was a good horse then, and he's going to even be a better horse the next time I see him. You know, so if we try to rush that process, then we have, oh, he kind of acted up, I don't know if that's a horse I want to, you know, kind of take on as far as adopting a horse. So like, you just keep that horse in a good light, you know, and get those basics done. The rest of the stuff, all the bells and whistles, will come pretty easy.
I love it. So what I'm hearing is like, sure, you want to have a big overview goal that you're looking at, but not to forget like that daily grind, one step after another, and meeting your horse where they're at.
Yeah.
Making progress,
yes,
and really enjoying that moment as you're making that progress with that horse.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yes.
Well, I love it. Thank you for joining me.
I appreciate it.
Sure appreciate you, Adam.
Thank you.
Thank you.